bride and grooms looking at these videos like they used to look at Pinterest 10 years ago and seeing these amazing weddings, which look like movies, and they're having the pressure then to thinking, how are we going to do our wedding? How is our wedding going to look? And it's not how is it going to look for their guests, it's how it's going to look online. Who gives a shit?
Hello and welcome to Unapologetic Podcast by SilverJay. I'm your host, Raj Somaiya, and today we actually have a very interesting topic at hand. And the theme of the entire podcast is luxury was never neutral. So today I am joined by my father, Raj Somaiya, who is also known as the Silver Fox. Now I think you can see where I get SilverJay from. Right, you tell me, why you sat here today and why did you want to have this conversation with me?
So I think when we were talking, and then I've watched more and more of your podcasts, and especially the last one and the way you were sort of going with it, I think it was really nice the way you came across with some of the comments about the wedding industry, which was more philosophical and to do with your education and my wedding industry and how you see it and describe it. I think it's just another layer of our wedding industry that it would be nice to show, because we're always doing the big bash and this, that and the other, and we're here, there and everywhere. But the way you look at luxury and the way you assessed it intelligently with your education, I just found it really fascinating. Now, I don't know if I'm going to understand half the stuff you're going to say, but I'll try and answer the questions naturally and openly. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to have this little deep dive into the luxury wedding market.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
We never hear that. I think what we want to assess is the wedding market. You have an entire breadth and depth of knowledge of the actual industry and the way you've seen people interact, the way we've seen the market go from when you started in 95 to the way it is in 25 now, is it has exploded in a way that is so easy now, or really interesting to actually analyze. And I think when we're analyzing weddings, it has to go beyond what we see normally. We need to really, as you said, take that deep dive into what it means to have a wedding, why we have them in the first place, and your positionality as an expert wedding planner and how you navigate the industry and how you work in it. And also from my perspective, how we're supposed to analyze it, because I have struggled with the concept of luxury and what that means for me. And because we deal in ultra luxury, but I'm like a radical feminist, sometimes they're opposing.
Will be.
It is opposing. And
Yeah.
I've had to be comfortable with that. And I think anyone who exists in those kinds of spheres will also just need to learn how to navigate that and work with that and just be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's about total honesty and not shying away from some of the things that we've seen and some of the things that we can analyze. So,
Go.
Interestingly, we are a brown creative family.
Randomly.
Really randomly.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about why and how you feel so creative? What is inside of you that went against the norm?
I can only go back to when I was at school, and it's probably about 9, 10 and 11. And because I was the only brown kid in 750 white kids school, so I was in a school, 750 kids, all white, and I was the brown person there. But I didn't look at it as a disadvantage. I looked at it as an advantage, which I always do because I always see things in a different light. So I thought, okay, I'm different here. And where I learned and what I did do with my particular advantage, which I saw it as an advantage, was that I loved the word individualistic. So I wanted to be individualistic. I wanted to do everything differently because I was different. And even when I had like a big briefcase when I went to a normal comprehensive school, I still had the little stickers on the side which said Raj. I was very proud of my name as well. I want everybody to know who I was. And it was like, and I think it's from that upbringing that I wanted to stand out always. I wanted to stand out the way I looked, my clothing, my shoes, the way I spoke, everything about myself. So when you asked me that question, I was thinking maybe it's from me being in that particular circumstance at school. And I took it as an advantage and not a disadvantage.
And you turned that into creativity, because a lot of people don't tend to do that. And I think you've allowed your kids to be incredibly creative, which I feel very grateful for. And you've always championed that. And I think that is something that I have always admired. I don't say this
Thank you.
Usually, but I do. I really do admire it. And I'm grateful for the allowance of even us being able to have an intergenerational discussion about creativity in this sphere is pretty rare, I would say. But because we are rare as a creative family, when we look at it in relation to the wedding market, being a disruptor in market is a big key component for Silver Fox events, because we transcend the boundaries of Eastern and Western, don't we? We look at Western luxury and we combine that with Eastern luxury, and we've been able to combine the two.
Because of our upbringing.
Because of the upbringing. But what was your upbringing in that way then? Why can you do that?
So, well, we're born British, aren't we? So I was born in Manchester. I'm very proud of that. And so my Western upbringing was, within me. And as I've said to you, from schooling days onwards, I was brought up very Western. Even before my comprehensive school, as a child, I went to a Catholic school because my parents thought that was the right thing to do when they came from Africa. And they had a little boy called Raj. And they said, no, let's bring him up as a true Brit, because we want him to integrate, we want him to understand, and we don't want him to feel isolated. So I went to Catholic school, sang the hymns, did the whole thing on the Friday, which I absolutely loved. We go to church and we do mass at Christmas because we just do, because that's what we did. And then, then obviously I went into my normal schooling days, and then off we went. So I think if you look at my upbringing, in Britain, it was like a Brit. So the only difference between me and the way I look is probably my brown skin. And then, but with that, we also have our Hinduism, which is amazing, and our faith and our culture and our fear of God. And that keeps us on the straight and narrow. So I've got this clash in my head anyway, where I was born British, brought up British, but I have Hinduism on the sideline, where I absolutely adore my religion, and that gives me strength to walk through dark alleys. So it's like when you put that then in the wedding industry, or when you're putting somebody's wedding together, I look at their Eastern ways of what they want to put across, but then I'm also a Brit, and I want to put my Western ways into that wedding. Was that the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? I'm not sure. But that's what I thought was the right thing to do.
I think that's how we've seen the market grow. But what we discussed previously, and I'm sort of jumping here, is when we've infiltrated that Western influence, sometimes we dilute or we make our Eastern influence palatable, which means we try and make our Indian side easy for the people in the West to understand better. So we're almost like we're basically putting more water in it just to make it easy for people to understand or to accept us. And I feel like your generation was so into being involved in the British way and making sure, because you guys had to survive. Grandma and Grandad had to survive in the economy, whereas I am fully British. I guess you were born here, so you are too. But for a lot of people, it was a survival mechanism, whereas our generation now rejects it a bit. And we're like, we want to bring back our Indian side or our Pakistani side and make it a lot more like vocal and a lot more clear and not be so shy of it. So do you see that trend coming back in with brides and grooms, or actually am I just completely wrong?
No, I think I get it from the beginning, sort of in the 95, we would take a wedding and you talk about the word luxury, and luxury to them meant upgrading their wedding in a particular way where people would come in and go, oh, this is a bit different. Oh, this is quite cool. Like, so when you look at the term luxury, it doesn't mean spending $1 zillion on flowers and it looks over the top. It's also adding things and tools like plated dinners, or maybe going into a hotel room rather than going in a community center, having waitresses, having bartenders and not the family serving, a Bacardi and Coke behind the bar. So we were upgrading these weddings in a Western way.
Yeah.
So that's what they saw as luxury. Okay, yeah, the flowers were better, and then the tablecloths were nice, and then the tablescaping was gorgeous, and we kept upgrading the decor bit. We kept upgrading the entertainment. We kept upgrading the F&B, the food and beverage, but we were upgrading it all towards Western society.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I'm not sure whether that was probably the right thing to do. Why couldn't we upgrade our South Asian weddings in different ways of luxury without going down the Western route?
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure where I'm going with this either. But now when I look at luxury weddings, so when I get a luxury bride and groom now, even in England, if not worldwide, but say we just stay in Britain and they're in a hotel in London, luxury to them now is elaborating on their Eastern cultures.
Yeah.
So if we're doing a nikah stage, then the stage needs to be stunning, and the nikah ceremony itself is exaggerated now, and it's explained to guests why we're doing it. They find that really important. And then if we're doing a mandap, for example, it looks stunning now with the mandap. So the mandap ceremonies are like masterpieces, like movie scenes, which is incredible. Where back in the day, it might have been like, oh, let's just do a quick mandap ceremony, but we've hired a mandap for 395 quid. That will do. But let's get on to the reception where the party is, and let's have a cocktail. I've heard about mojitos. They're so amazing at weddings. So like that mandap ceremony was parked, and then the mojito was the new thing. Now it's like we've done that. We've got the Western culture. We nailed that. We're pretty good at doing Western weddings. So now we're exaggerating the Eastern part of our weddings, which was where we belonged in the first place. So it's a really beautiful blend now of it's turned around in 30 years. But then, and again, I'm not sure whether that was the right thing or the wrong thing, but it's no one's fault or no one's brainchild to do that. It was the way we were brought up in England. So it was an automatic thing that if we had a plated dinner or if we had cocktails at a wedding, although they're Western techniques of weddings, we thought they were cool for our Indian weddings or our Pakistani weddings. And maybe they weren't. I don't know.
No, I think that's really interesting, actually, everything that you just said there, because it really just showed the journey of our belonging and our whole experience being in the UK. And I think from coming here and wanting to feel like we were a part of a new culture, we're starting to see a really, really like a blend that has a lot of synergy, and we are not distancing ourselves from our culture anymore. We're actually reclaiming it back.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite a positive shift.
Yeah.
And most of what I talk about sometimes can be very cynical, but actually that's a very lovely way of explaining how brides and grooms and in-laws and parents are cultivating a really, really lovely experience for a wedding. And even now I see a lot of bride and grooms, or brides particularly, going into the civil side. So when they do their civil wedding, they actually get their white wedding.
Yeah.
Because I think we saw growing up on TV shows and rom-coms and this and that, you walk down the aisle with your white dress, you stand, at the altar and you say your vows. And growing up and seeing that, I remember a friend said to me once, I'm really sad I'll never get a white wedding, because you grow up seeing that. And recently, whether people like it or they dislike it or whatever they feel is comfortable for them, we're seeing a lot more of these Indian brides wearing like white ball gowns down the aisle because they want to feel a part of something they've always watched. But then they also really go and do the Indian wedding or the Pakistani wedding super effectively and just, really, really well. So it's interesting how we're trying to navigate that blend constantly.
And I think we do it very well now.
Yeah.
I really do, like with the civil ceremonies. We've made it a part of our 10-day ritual, how many days we do on a South Asian wedding. But it's really cute that we do actually do a proper, sometimes I've got rehearsal dinners. But I wanted to touch on a point about turning them Western and then going back Eastern. I do have brides that are sick of some of the ceremonies too.
Okay.
And the priests are now being questioned. So I can only talk to you about one particular bride, and I can only talk to you about us questioning the priest about a certain ceremony.
Which was what?
Which was when you leave, when you have your Indian wedding ceremony. It was a Hindu wedding. And then they come out of the hotel, and then it's one of my little famous things that I did on the Big Fat on Channel 4, where you have to drive over the coconut when you leave. That was it. That was like, wow, done. And the bride questioned the priest and said, hey, Mr. Priest, we love what you're saying. We're going to do everything that you need us to do because we want to get married correctly. But do I really need to drive over this coconut? Or is it just a load of
What is the
mumbo?
coconut? What does it mean?
So we said, what does it mean that we break this coconut and the dolly car or the leaving ceremony car breaks this coconut and goes over it? Like, what's the significance of that? And he just said it's just a fun, I think he said, and you can't quote me on this, but it was more of a fun thing that people used to do at the end of a wedding.
Oh.
As like a breaking of the glass or a breaking of the Jewish guys break the little pot and we break a little pot when we enter, and just those sort of things. There isn't a religious factor behind it, which was like ticking off you finished your wedding ceremony. It was more of an additional thing that people have done over the years and thought it's a fun thing to do, breaking the coconut. So priest said, to be honest, there is no religious significance of breaking this coconut. So she goes, well, if that's the case, I'm not doing it. So I was like,
fair play.
Wow, you're not going to break the coconut on the way out. Are you joking?
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God, they're going to split. So, but no, the priest said that. So our brides, they'll do all the big things that they need to do, but they'll also question all the little bits. Is it necessary to have a milni? And there's all these little things that will come up anyway in wedding ceremonies. It's just really interesting that they are questioning some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So because they're Western, but they're keeping their Eastern traditions, and they'll elaborate those Eastern traditions, but they still will question them. And same on the Western side, though.
This is a really interesting point here that I'm just going to pick up on questioning our traditions and whether it's tradition, culture, or religion. Which category does it fall into? We'll follow the religious side because it's in scripture, it's in text, and we feel like that is closer to God. And then you look at culture and tradition, the way it's traveled. So when you have families that come to the UK or in America or Canada, for example, they hold on to their traditions and their culture so strongly in such a conservative way because they're so afraid of becoming Western, and they don't want to allow their families to break that traditional culture.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of strictness in a lot of parents because they don't want their children to run off like, the white people or do anything that is anti-Indian. But actually, in India, they are moving on. And they're actually, because they are inherently Indian and they don't need to prove their identity in any way or feel ever like they're too white for Indians and too Indian for white people. They don't ever feel that in India, because that's just who they are. It's inherent. So their traditions and cultures can move on and can go on a journey because their identity is never in question. Whereas for us, our identity and culture is always in question because we are balancing two cultures constantly. And even us sat here right now, we are analysing how we balance our cultures in a luxury wedding market.
Correct, yeah.
So it's great that I think brides are questioning some of these traditions and cultures and rejecting some of it and keeping some of it, because
They're
they
not
should be
religious.
allowed to, though.
Yeah.
And I think we criticize people too quickly for certain things. And in reality, we're all just individuals who want to do it in our own way.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you break it down with tradition, culture, and religion, we get the religious things and we'll do it for our parents and our grandparents and for ourselves, and we want to carry that on with our children. This is really important also, where, you know, I get afraid that it starts diluting our religion, whether it's Islam or whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Sikhism or, and I get really worried that the youngsters will start diluting it a bit. So I hope they hold on to that religion bit, but getting a little bit of culture out or a bit of tradition cut off, no problem with that whatsoever, if there isn't religious belief about it. But yeah, it's not complicated as such. But another point that I was going to raise with you is that, so why is it then that an Indian wedding or a Pakistani wedding, or let's call it a South Asian wedding in the UK, has adopted Western society because we've been brought up in Western society? And why is it that a South Asian wedding in India or Pakistan has adopted Western ways? Was that colonialism?
Nice question. So
you can answer that one because you're good at this.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
Long answer, I think when we've seen the British infiltrate our cultures in such violent ways when they came into our country and our motherland, we saw them disrupt our ways of being. We were deemed as savages. We were completely backwards. And the violent attack on our culture and erasing it from us was successful to an extent. And we see the wealth divide in India so extraordinarily, and that is a result of years of economic disruption to India. So when you see us being broken down predominantly from an economic point of view, we're going to see such rigid ways of holding on to our inheritance and our culture that I think it gets locked in certain ways. But equally, you end up being part of the British way, because in order to survive, we had to mirror what it meant in the West. And the West were able to create structures, and capitalism was born from colonization. So the way we are able to exist in this world, we have to follow capitalist ways of making money. That is how we survive now. Small businesses were set up and they ended up exploding into big corporations. And that's where we see it now. We see corporations taking over the world in such insane ways at the moment that I think we're going to have to start controlling, because it's ending up becoming a bit of a monopoly. And we have no choice sometimes but to exist in that structure. And a part of existing in it is adopting Western ways of working, which means Western values, which means trading with the West constantly. So we're in constant trade and constant power dynamics with the globe that have profited off us being exploited and violently attacked. So we have no choice, or we feel we have to perform now. And like the version of luxury that has come out of that is colonial. And it's luxury is seen as old money. It's seen as minimalist, and it's seen as like quite quiet, but in a very like strong sense. And weirdly enough, I'm now analysing what I think of luxury as being, you don't show it, it's not showy. Like when we look at old English aristocrats, we see that as an ideal of how to behave with lots of money, because it's not showy, you just are part of that high society. But we now use the term new money, old money, don't we? So Indians that have made their money in the last 20 years, we use the term new money, and sometimes it's flashy, sometimes it's in your face, sometimes, you know, I think there's criticism online about how we showcase wealth as like wealthier Indians. Whereas English people, when they've made money and it's in their generations for years and years, we glamorize old money and say that's a great way of behaving if you have money. But actually, if you analyze it, it's what we deem as luxurious because it has colonial implications.
This is what I'm getting to. So if we take colonialism out of India, and if India was India without being colonized, then what do you think their weddings would be like? Do you think they would have adapted any of the Western ways that they might have seen across the water? How would an Indian wedding be? What's a luxurious Indian wedding in India look like without colonialism?
You're whacking me for some great questions here.
But I'm just I'm intrigued with our Western ways. And I understand why the Indian weddings now in India adapt some of the Western ways. It's because of the colonialism and what they've seen and heard, and they're very good at what we do.
Yeah, but I think Indians in India reject that a lot more.
But then they still put lots of Western influences on their
like
events.
Like what? Give me an example.
So if you look at a big Indian wedding...
Because we might get backlash for this point, so this is interesting. Go on.
Yeah, so if you look at a big Indian wedding in India or in Mumbai, then they will be looking upon maybe... let me talk to you about entertainment.
Go for
right.
it.
European band flying from Paris to Mumbai or to Delhi or wherever he goes consistently, because India want to have a French band at their wedding. That to me shows that they are interpreting Western ways or Western entertainment as an upmanship on what Indian bands and Indian musicians could deliver for them at their Indian wedding. I think that looks more luxurious. And going into India, we have amazing musicians in India, but they will not see an Indian band in the same light as they see a French band.
So I'm going to take this one step further.
Go on.
Yes, we can look at that quite cleanly and say we want to adopt Western values, tick. The next area that I think you can take that theory in is wanting to be different. So I think because weddings are such a huge indicator of your class privilege, of your performance of love, of, you know, we cultivate weddings as a one time in a woman's life where she is front and center and she is finally celebrated. Women don't get celebrated by, I mean, generally speaking, you don't get the same show as you would if you launch a podcast, if you get a career jump, if you do something for you. But having a man marry you is apparently one of the biggest moments of your life, especially if you're straight and you're celebrated because you're not from the LGBTQ community either. So weddings in that sphere have to seem individual and people want to stand out. So how can people stand out if they've seen the same Indian stuff again and again? Oh, I know. Let me go to France and take that amazing band and I'm a bit different now because I've used somewhere globally. Because if weddings are a performance of love and class, they have to be seen as different. But again, it does take on that idea of what does class mean? And if we're using that as an example, then yeah, we see the Western way of working as of a higher class.
They do.
Yeah.
That's how they see it. I didn't know whether that was colonialism. I didn't know whether it was because, like you said, they want to be different.
I think it will make the audience members feel and think, what would it look like if we didn't have those influences? Would we be a lot more religious, a lot more humble, and a little bit less inclined to perform our weddings than if we had this culture? So I'm going to jump topics I want to look at the performance of weddings. You're quite good at this. We perform to have virality online. So there is the rise of sort of the social media bride. And I've seen it in so many ways. I think there's a lot of trying to outperform one another. I think it's trying to have the most innovative wedding, when in reality for me, from what I've learned and from what I've personally also, guys, I used to also do weddings and I used to plan them too.
She's quite good at it as well, actually.
Yes, I was. Oh, I've got a story about that, actually. So I'll go to social media bride in a minute. So when I was planning one of the weddings, and this will go into the feminism side of weddings in a sec, is I didn't know what the term, like, there was like this fog that comes out. I was talking to a couple of suppliers. There were two guys, and I didn't know what the specific fog was called. I didn't know the jargon. I'm sorry. And I just said, when the fog comes out. And the two men just started sniggering at me.
Yeah.
And they were like, she doesn't know that term. And I was like, okay, now I feel stupid that I didn't know what that term was.
Yeah.
And then I planned this entire wedding. I run it start to finish. And the same guy turns around to you and says, that's the best event plan I've ever worked with. I was like, well, there you go. So, yeah, just thought I would add that in, because I think women in the industry are really seen as like little administrators running around doing bits and bobs.
I've had this argument with somebody else the other day.
Really?
And they've seen this. There's another planner, and she's brown. And she just said, I just see the events industry full of men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but when I'm sat in Claridge's, or if I'm sat at the Lanesborough for dinner with these amazing planners from Europe, they're generally women.
Are they brown?
No.
Ah, there you go.
Well, no, I'm just saying that, but they're female.
Yeah.
And okay, and there's only a few males in that area that, that get invited to these things. So I don't know where this perception is that the events industry is run by men, because I've not seen that. I've seen the events industry run by women.
Yeah, but it's the perception of what events are. Like, this is a whole topic. So let's park this for a minute, because I want to go back to the social media bride, and I want to talk about the performance online. I just want to tell my story about how amazing I am.
Okay,
let's talk about it. You tell me. Do you see a lot of performance?
No, I'm getting a little bit worried about this. So I've put a few things out on social media myself, and I really, really, really want the brides not to worry about what they're seeing on social media. So there's a few things here. So number one, what does a luxury wedding look like? Why do we get married? What is the actual wedding ceremony for? And what is the parties for? Or what are the gatherings for? Even if the word party, if you took out of it. So why do two people get married? And then why do we celebrate a wedding with family? Okay, so let's get back down to basics. There's a boy and a girl, or a boy and a boy, or a girl and a girl, and they want to get married, okay, because they love each other. That was the whole point. They've realized that they're soulmates, and they want to be together, and that's why they want to show the world and tell everybody in their family that we're going to be together forever, and we're going to have a function to show people that we're doing that in front of our family to commit. And then after that, we're going to have a celebration with our family to celebrate the fact that we have connected our souls. That's it. Okay, that's how it all started. Mm-hmm. So two people went down the aisleway, said their vows in front of, whatever book, nikahs, mundaps, whatever they wanted to do, civil ceremonies. They did it in front of their faith, or maybe they don't do it, they do it with non-faith wedding in front of their family, and it's done, and they have a little celebration afterwards, some food and a few drinks and a bit of a dance to say, wow, we got married, right? That was it. So that now has turned into this whole area where I am seeing weddings which look like movies, whether they're in the pyramids, whether they are, on boats, whether I just saw one this morning where the bride arrived, through a lake. It looks stunning. Don't get me wrong. It's wicked. Great for my business with my capitalist head on, no problem. Love it. Got great ideas. Me and Sheetal can come up with another zillion different ideas around the world to do weddings like that.
It's also very creative and that's fun as well.
It's fun and creative, and it's for the right people. Are they doing it for the right reason? That's not my problem. But what I'm worried about and what I'm concerned about is bride and grooms looking at these videos like they used to look at Pinterest 10 years ago and seeing these amazing weddings, which look like movies, and they're having the pressure then to thinking, how are we going to do our wedding? How is our wedding going to be? How is our wedding going to look? And it's not how is it going to look for their guests. It's how it's going to look online afterwards. Who gives a shit? Like, why are you worried about that? How your wedding is going to look on? Your wedding was for, let's go back to basics, two souls staying together, committing together in front of their family. That's the bit you need to be worried about. That's the bit that you need to be concerned about. Their guest experience, the family's guest experience, the fun that they have in their wedding. But then when you add social media and you're also then worried about creating a movie that needs to go out onto Instagram, so people who don't even know you need to watch your wedding and see it's like a movie. Who cares? Don't care. Care about the people inside. What really annoys me is that they make my guests do random things on their wedding day, or they'll pause, restart because we didn't quite capture that. It won't look right on Instagram. So it's like they make them retake their wedding so they can get good Instagram postage for later. So it puts pressure on the bride and groom of having to perform something which they don't want to. And then they're losing the touch of their family. So that they're losing what they were meant to be doing in the first place. And they're thinking more about their wedding on Instagram, out in social media, and what other people that don't even know them think about their wedding.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
But the ones that want to do that, do it. Got it. You know, I get that. You're doing it. You want a movie. You're going to do an amazing wedding. You want to, you know, that was in your passion that, yeah, our souls are coming together and we're going to have a wedding, but we want to make it the best on the planet. Do it. But the ones who don't want to do that, don't get pressured by seeing that and thinking you need to do that. It's that dilemma. And it reminds me of back in the sort of 20, 25 years ago, when you had normal sized women who were watching TV, and we used to have fashion TV at that time, consistent sort of fashion shows, catwalks, and like you have Kate Moss and all these amazing models who was, you know, stick thin. And then it made women feel really inferior about their own bodies because they used to see these stick thin size zeros walking across catwalks, and it made out that that's how women should look.
Yeah.
So we're doing the same thing. We're showing weddings online now and saying this is how weddings should look, and putting pressure on normal people or people who don't really want that, or there are silent luxury people or quiet luxury people that don't really want that, but being pressured to maybe building a bit of a movie scene in their wedding now where they don't want it.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell the world, just chill out. Like, just chill. You know, it was about two souls getting together. It's about your guest experience. And as long as every single guest in that room has the best time, and it doesn't need to be documented, that's what it was all about.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little bit, and I'm going to put this out on media a bit more now because I just feel as if there's a conversation to be had. And the more of us get behind it, saying like, you know, don't get pressured into building a movie out of your wedding, I think it'll just take the pressure off people.
I totally agree. And I think the peer pressure on women and men sometimes to perform their wedding and make it seem like the most viral thing is it's really losing the meaning of what it means to be married to a person and what it means to commit your life to somebody. And people ask me all the time, what's your wedding going to be like?
Yeah.
And I'm literally just like, to be honest, I just want to get eloped. Like, I would love an intimate wedding because, and like putting the detail behind it, that's what we love to do. I think detail is a really big part of our ethos. But equally, because I've seen such a circus around competitive weddings and seen the pressure that not only do brides put on themselves, but society puts on brides to create the most perfect moment of their life, because everything comes down to one day of their entire existence is getting married. It really, I'm not going to lie, it puts me off. And because we're part of the industry, we see it a lot more frequently. And I do talk about this on another podcast, that marriage is a very spiritual thing. And it's really, really about, as you said, two souls coming together.
100%.
So religious, it's so spiritual. Every single faith, culture, non-faith, non-culture has a form of union. And that obviously means something, because why would it exist if it didn't mean something
Correct, yeah.
originally? So yeah, I'm really glad that we've highlighted, or you've highlighted that topic. And I really hope for anyone planning their wedding at the moment, let it be about you. Let it be about how your family feel. I think for Indian weddings specifically, maybe South Asian in general, it's about two families coming together. So when I do eventually, if I have a wedding, then I know it will be about how you and mum feel. I know it will be about how Risha and Avi feel. It's not actually just about me, and it's about the family and how they will be involved, because it's a huge family union as well. And
you can balance it also.
yeah,
You can have a show, but you can make sure that the guest experience is equally as good. So you can balance it accordingly. But I'm just going back. I'm just going back to the point of the pressure. Weddings are so hard to put on anyway.
Yeah.
Making all the families happy and getting your jewelry and getting your outfits and, you know, learning your first dance. And again, that's another pressure, you know, but besides that, and then having this added problem of trying to make it into a movie or worrying about social media. Like if social media wasn't there, we used to have a photographer and we had a videographer. And the only people that would see that photography or that video would be the family and maybe a few other people that couldn't attend. And that would be it. Or you'd have some friends round at Christmas and like, oh, should we watch our wedding video again? It was so cool. That'd be it.
yeah,
Now it's like they're posting their weddings online, like movies. And I just think it's just gone a bit too far.
yeah.
And again, capital-wise, money-wise, whatever, Silver Fox-wise, it's fantastic that people want to do these very elaborate weddings and have this fantastic entertainers there and stuff. But we also, as Silver Fox Events, will make sure that the guest experience is equally as good and you don't feel as if you're sat on a set design or you're sat in a show at a theatre, because that's what you don't want. You know, so we do look at both sides of that. And coming back to artists, like for weddings also, we do steer away from having A-listers on, because it sometimes takes the attention away from the bride and groom.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And bride and grooms have come to me and said that, Raj, you know, we don't really want to have an A-list, all the mum and dad do. Because mum and dad are doing it for one reason and they're doing it for another. So I said, no, absolutely no problem. But then on parties, when it's your 50th and you've got, you know, like we had Liam Gallagher on a gig. It's cool, right? That's fun. You know, that's entertainment for their guests because it's a party. But so it's not bothered taking it away from the birthday boy. He wants to have that fun, you know. So there is an element of that also. I just think it needs to be just taken back. Yeah, strip it back.
I think strip it back.
Strip it back. And then we should also then lead right on to what we're trying to do in Abu Dhabi. And it's starting there with this quiet, silent luxury. No phones.
Okay.
Would you have your wedding with no phones?
I would love it.
Right?
Yeah. But I think we were having this discussion yesterday. Weddings have started to adopt those practices where they do not want people to be filming their entire wedding.
Correct.
Because they want people to be present.
Yeah.
And I think we're so glued to these screens and these devices that are controlling our lives so insanely that it's taking away from being present in a moment. Like, why can't you, like, memories exist as well. Real life memories exist. So I don't know why we can't go back to that sometimes. And I think a no phone policy at a wedding is a great idea.
It's amazing.
If you can just make sure that you have somebody taking content.
Which we have.
Yeah, that you then get sent it.
Yeah. And I think that content would look better, first of all, than the content that they're taking.
Yeah.
So you got a few problems here. So you got number one, the person who's taking that video or that photograph is more worried about the way that photo or that video looks, and actually forgetting that the bride or her best friend, or, you know, she might be a bridesmaid and she's videoing the bride going down the aisleway, totally not looked at and missed it.
Yeah.
Because they've retaked and they've messed around with the camera and stuff, and they're doing that consistently. So every 5 minutes they're taking pictures in a wedding that's 12 hours long. They're really not part of that wedding. All they've done is done what a photographer or a video man would do. Then second of all,
But wait, just to also put that in, they're also taking the content to see how other people might look at it. So they're not taking it for them. They're taking it based on how will this now look online? How will this now go viral? For their own...
Not for the bride and groom.
No, for them to then go viral.
Yeah, I'm in Greece watching a wedding.
Yeah, these are the types of friends I have. So again, class comes into it. If you're at an amazing wedding in Dubai, outside the Burj Khalifa, and you show that you are there, how does that now show to people online where you sit in society?
Well, that's a whole different topic again. So we were talking about bride and grooms making their weddings into movies, but now you're talking about guests who are not really bothered about the wedding that's taking place and enjoying the food and beverage and the entertainment. They're more bothered about their Insta and what they're going to show the people that follow them and how cool they are being in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa, at somebody's wedding.
Yeah.
So that's just a whole nother. So if you take the phones off them, that'll eliminate that. And they can be present and they can watch that wedding and relax and have a drink and have something to eat and not carry their phone around in their hand every 15 seconds. We tell the bride and grooms to chill out and say, look, you don't need to make it into a movie, but you can if you want to. But the guest experience is there, and we will make sure we balance that correctly. And I think that's the sort of stuff that needs to be looked at right now in weddings. And one thing that really annoyed me about phones, we were doing a wedding in Greece. My bride was walking down the aisleway, and one of the guests videoed her walking down the aisleway, and the groom was waiting at the end, and he's not even seen his bride really walk down the aisleway. And she took that video, this particular person, and posted it online before the bride had even hit the altar.
No way.
And it's like, come on, the groom's not even really seen her walk down the aisleway. And you've got it out on Instagram, out in social media, how the bride looks from the back end going forward. First of all, the video footage looks terrible. All right, you had an amazing view. But like, why would you put that out there before the even groom's seen his own bride walk down the aisleway?
Yeah.
That's really annoying. So it's not just taking that footage, they're posting it live. Some people are live posting this stuff on events when even the family might not have walked into the event space or seen what the reception room looks like.
Yeah, I get really irritated because
it winds me up,
you're just
totally.
Around people that are just... I was with somebody we were at a wedding, and they were already looking at what they were about to post on Instagram based on the pictures they'd just taken of their outfit. I was just like, can you not just take a few pictures and leave it to tomorrow? Even if you want to do that, like if that's something you want to do.
Yeah.
And then you can't be around people because the conversations never then... Because of phones being around, you're never having deep conversations because someone's phone might ping and then you're not actually present in your moment.
You don't.
So the conversation never goes deep. You're never actually extracting what you could out of a human because everybody's glued to the perception of themselves. How they look online is more important to how they're making somebody feel in the moment. And it can be the same for guests looking at the bride and groom, and it can be the same for the bride and groom interacting with their guests. And I think if you eliminate technology from somebody's experience, you're going to have a much better experience.
But they're addicted.
It's addiction. And is it that person's fault? If they're addicted, if they're being made to be addicted, it's not. But then I think if the wedding or the infrastructure of the wedding is no phones allowed, that takes away the stress for the guests and the bride and groom, no?
I think it does, because you just say, hi, I'm attending so-and-so's wedding. It's a no-phone policy, so I'm going to go dark for a bit, catch up tomorrow.
Yeah,
boom,
see
boom,
you later.
done. Put it in your bag.
What's your conclusion as an event planner? So let's round this off now. How would Silver Fox now deal with the wedding market? And how would you like to see it go? And when you're constructing your weddings for people, how do you now plan to do it, and what's your advice?
So we talked about luxury. Okay, so what does a luxurious wedding look like, in the eyes of Silver Fox Events? Okay, so as I've said to you before, we would look at the actual traditions or the religious ceremony parts of that wedding and exaggerate those areas and make them more meaningful. We would then look at the guest experience, which is really important because weddings are boring. They bore you to death. So you need to make them really interesting for the guests, okay? Because you're not invited 300 people across the world and then expect them to go and sit somewhere and eat and then have a drink and listen to a DJ and then go home. That's not fair, right? You need to at least make sure they have a good guest experience. So the bride and groom need to enjoy their structure and what they're doing and have beautiful photos and videos accordingly to show their family and friends later. Bride and groom's experience needs to be amazing, and we need to look at and elaborate the Eastern ways of whatever they are going to do in their ceremony. And then that's about it. I think they need to be present, right? And I just think we need to get back to basics
and
a little bit.
realigning our intentions.
What were we getting married for?
Yeah, what are we doing it for? And feeling that, I think the guests would feel it a lot more. And I think there wouldn't be pressure when it's your turn next to perform. I think you'll just feel very happy to put something together, which is a lot of work. And I think there's a lot of work that goes behind putting something so extraordinary together. And that's an entire topic within itself. But we are at time, which it's flown by. I think we've touched on some incredible topics. I think we've gone from our positionality as brown creatives and actually maximizing what it means to be a creative in industry. We've flown all the way to colonial expectations of weddings into the concept of social media and what weddings are in this day and age, what they mean and what we need to do going forward. You are an industry leader. Sometimes it's palatable, sometimes it's not.
Correct, yeah.
And I think when you are that creative and are that disruptive in industry, not everybody's going to like it. And we've seen that time and time again. And I think it's important to iterate that when you're ahead of the curve, it's not always going to be palatable. And when I'm critically analysing, it's not always palatable, as I've seen. So, yeah, I think what we've done here is hopefully, if you're a bride or if you're a groom, if you're a mother of the bride, father of the bride and groom, hope it's made you feel less pressure now to perform and make you feel like you're doing it for you. And that's what we're trying to get across here. We're trying to break the cycle.
So if I was to ask you a question at the end then, because we started off with, what was your line at the beginning? You said
luxury was never neutral.
Okay, so if I say to you, luxury was never neutral, and after our discussion that we've just had, and I say to you, what does a luxurious wedding look to you?
A luxurious wedding to me would be luxury not in a material sense, but luxury in terms of richness, and richness in love, in being taken care of, in all the details of making it flow. So you're not thinking too much as a guest and you're not thinking too much as a bride. You're not over analysing every single decision. And if you've got the capital to have a wedding planner like Silver Fox Events, let you carry that emotional labour and that burden and take it off as a bride and feel like you are rich in love, in everything that you're doing for the right reason. And however you want your design, however you want your party, however you want the way you want it, let that come from your gut instinct. Don't let that come from what you think people might want you to do. And I think that is an internal feeling of what you would like to express. And for some people, their wedding is a great way of expressing their creativity.
Absolutely.
It's a massive project in people's lives. And I think, why not take the opportunity to give someone something that, or give yourself something and a really funky project?
Yeah, correct.
If you can. I think it's cool.
but don't be influenced by
Other
the outside
people.
environment.
Yeah.
And social media. Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Whether that's getting married at the top of the Eiffel Tower or not.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted to
Yeah.
do. You're not doing it for others.
Yeah.
Outside of your family circuit.
Yeah. And outside of what you can physically afford as well.
Correct.
Don't feel the pressure to spend a lot of money on a
We
wedding.
talked about loans, didn't we?
And I think bride and groom,
pressure.
they are prioritizing putting money towards a mortgage now.
Yeah.
They're not prioritizing a big fancy wedding. And I think that is an economic thing. I think if people could do both, they would. But there is priorities.
Well, then you've hit the nail on the head where you said luxury was about love and being present and caring and having a beautiful, flowy wedding, which is more important to what you see as a luxury wedding.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of getting
Yeah.
married. So it's going back to basics. And I really like your point about being present and sharing love,
That's
because
nice.
that's what it's all about. And that's a
Absolutely.
luxury wedding, sharing love.
Yes, luxury
Let's stay on that point.
was never neutral. Yeah, amazing.
Boom.
We did it. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Well-
If you like this podcast, please like, share, comment, do your thing. My socials are tagged below in the comments. This is Raj from Silver Fox Events, also my father. So thank you very much for being on.
You're welcome, Ria.